All right, let's keep that energy going for our 8th storyteller tonight, Eric, everybody. Here comes Eric.
I was just 22 years old, 1 year away from getting my teaching degree, and I was not ready. I had grown up believing that love is a lie, and you can't teach with that kind of damage. So I decided I needed a final exam. So I spent the summer in Hawaii supervising a gang of pineapple pickers. 13 boys, 16 to 18 years old. I was their boss in the field, their counselor in camp. But I knew exactly what I was getting into. When I was 16, I spent the summer picking pineapples to get away from the stepfather that taught me that love is a lie. So I get to Hawaii a few days early. The night before they arrive, the camp coordinator, one of the camp coordinators, Clay, caught me under this giant mango tree in the courtyard of our camp. And he handed me a pile of folders. I said, "What are these?" He said, "These are the applications of every guy in your gang, but we've added something. We asked a parent or legal guardian to write the life history of each kid with the understanding that you would be the only one to read it." I did not know they did this. I disappeared into the office as it was getting dark, and I opened up the first folder, and there was the picture of Jim with his goofy grin and all the stuff a 16-year-old kid thinks you ought to know to hire him to pick pineapples. And I turned the page, and I'd seen all that. So when I turned the page, there was this yellow piece of paper with this pretty cursive handwriting on it. And his mother said, "I'm so happy my son is getting out of our house and away from his father, who has called him stupid his entire life." I could feel the tears as she said, "And I'm afraid he's beginning to believe it." And I looked back at his picture, and that goofy grin suddenly looked different to me. And I thought, how am I going to get through the summer without saying or doing something that's going to make him think he's stupid? Opened up the next folder. It was Bill, in trouble for a lot of crimes he'd committed to support his drug addictions. And his father was trying to get the judge to let him serve his son's time in jail. And his mother was furious. She said, "We're not dealing with the real problem, our son's addictions." And I looked back at his picture, and his eyes looked tired. And I thought, what am I supposed to do? And I opened up the next folder, Alex. I was already afraid of this kid. He'd been over there picking pineapples before, and he was coming back. Nobody does that. His foster mom said his mom died when he was a little boy, and he got an abusive stepmother, and then his father died. And she said, "We're about to kick him out of our home because we just don't know how to deal with his anger." And I looked back at his picture, and now I was really afraid. And this went on, folder after folder, mothers and their sons. Suddenly my mom's 5 marriages looked kind of normal. I opened up the last folder, was Stanley. He reminded me of me, high GPA, National Honor Society, a real nerd. I didn't want to turn the page. His mother explained how he hadn't talked to her for the last year, ever since she divorced his father for having an incestuous relationship with their daughter. She said, "I know my son's trying to be strong, but I'm afraid the love he feels for his father, his sister, and me is just tearing him apart." And I looked back at his picture, at that poker face, and I stared out the office window into the darkness, and I felt like I was drowning. As I left the office, Clay was waiting for me. He said, "You okay?" And I nodded. And he said, "Good, because we got a problem. There's a kid that's been here for 3 months, and we're ready to send him home, unless you're willing to give him another chance in your gang." And I said, sure, why not? And as soon as I met, he said, good, because he's moving his stuff into your dorm now. And as soon as I met him, I immediately realized why they were ready to send him home. He started talking nonstop, telling me how things were going to be. He was the kind of kid that if he's in a group of people, they all give in just to get him to stop talking about it. And my instinct was to just say, look, man, you need to shut up. But I couldn't, because my life had changed. I hadn't read his life history, but I knew that out there somewhere, there was a mother that wanted me to love her son as much as she did. And I was going to have to figure out how. Well, I was telling this story to one of my math classes a few years ago, and as I told this story, it dawned on me, my own mother would have written my life history when I was 16. And I suddenly felt this urge to this panic to find that paper, that cursive handwriting. But it was impossible. But fortunately, life has given me time to realize that love is not always a lie. I know exactly what my mother would have said.